Hi everyone. This is the voice behind the noise. And I am Myron. Russia and the US showed no signs of stopping biting each other's head off despite progress to a certain extent in Russia-Ukraine talks, with a Russian official announcing Moscow's readiness to respond to sanctions that will be swift and sensitive for targeted countries, just hours after the US announced a ban on Russian oil, natural gas and coal imports, and the UK outlined a plan to phase out Russian oil, as Washington took the opportunity of the Russia-Ukraine conflict to press further economic cutoff between Russia and the West. The US move to urge European allies on energy sanctions against Russia has a very selfish motive inside, as not only does the US look to weaken Europe's self-independent strategy by binding Europe's economic ties with the US, but also the country is using Russia-targeted sanctions as an excuse to ruthlessly extend its crackdown on third-party countries, including China. Moreover, US President Joe Biden announced on March 8 that the US is banning Russian oil, natural gas and coal imports, shortly after the UK said it would phase out imports of Russian oil and oil products by the end of 2022. All in all, the US ban on Russian energy, which it is actively instigating European countries to follow suit, is a long premeditated tactic that is not surprising at all. The US is looking to replace Russia's role in many European countries as a major energy seller, not only for the good of their own oil and natural gas companies, but more importantly, to bind Europe's economic interests tightly with its own so Europe would be on the side of the US in terms of Asia-Pacific issues. The US also has much more chips to interfere with EU's independent strategy once Europe becomes a major US energy buyer. The efforts to shift the EU toward the US in energy supply actually fit into the US long-standing tactical intention of kidnapping Europe on the energy issue, tracing such tactics to the US accusation that Europe's natural gas ties with the Soviet Union during the Cold War funded the former Northern Eurasian state. Although those objectives are hidden behind the US outcry against the Russian military operations in Ukraine, some interesting details have exposed the US double standards about its Russia-targeting sanctions. For example, the US ban on imports of Russian energy products does not include uranium, which the US relies heavily on to power its nuclear power plants. However, there remains a significant discrepancy between the US and Europe when it comes to banning Russian energy imports, which will largely weaken the influence of the ban on the Russian economy. Okay, that's all for today. See you in the next video.